It is not practical for one human being to go to 600 websites periodically to make sure there's no bugs that have released or somebody made a mistake and released the wrong version of the CMP interface. Here's what your consumers are experiencing. Here are the 10 guys that you've never heard of that you don't have a contract with. Most of our clients want that readout, they want those guideposts, and that's what we provide.
Hello everyone, I am Sergio Maldonado and this is Masters of Privacy, a set of interviews covering the intersection of marketing, data, privacy and technology with a clear goal in mind, which is redefining the relationship between people, brands and media around transparency and control. Which is to say, we're aiming for real customer centricity, or if you will, human centricity. We regularly talk to DPOs, CMOs, CDOs and whoever else we find interesting and able to share valuable insights. So we hope you like it. Please do reach out if you have any ideas on future topics or speakers. Okay, we have another episode in our Privacy Tech series, our fifth, and we are joined today by Christine Desrosiers from San Francisco-based Boltive. Christine is the company's VP of Product and Head of Privacy, and she's an operations and product professional with 20 years of experience. She's also involved in a number of industry working groups and advisory boards. With Christine, we'll dive deeper into the concept of manipulative design to go beyond the more commonly used idea of dark patterns. Things like interface interference will sound familiar to those who've studied Daniel Solov's taxonomy of privacy harms, like decisional interference. And he was here, by the way, a few months ago. And we'll go through some examples, enforcement actions and best practices. After that, we'll talk about monitoring the company's digital properties and expanding this sort of due diligence to the advertising stack. Let's go for it. Christine, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, what are manipulative designs, please?
Manipulative designs are also known as dark patterns, deceptive design. You hear these terms kind of out there in the industry, in the privacy community, all kind of a similar idea. They are patterns and websites and apps that seek to nudge a consumer, steer a consumer in a specific direction. A lot of times the steering will be towards an outcome that benefits the business, that may be of dubious benefit to the consumer, or even get them to give up information that they wouldn't ordinarily want to give up. We use the term, at Boltive, we use the term manipulative design after Jessica Lee from Loeb & Loeb. She runs the privacy practice at Loeb & Loeb. And there is, the term dark pattern, the term deceptive design includes, there are definitions baked in there. There are things to unpack. The term deceptive actually carries some kind of legal significance potentially. So we know Jessica, we've heard her on panels, we've talked to her. She has used the term manipulative design in the past, and we tend to favor that because it's more neutral and it's more clear. If I sit down with a client, and we find a lot of times there's just a lot of education that needs to be done around this out there in the world. If I sit down and I talk to them about dark patterns, well, now I have to explain what dark patterns are. If I sit down and talk to them about manipulative patterns or manipulative design, that's just a lot clearer. And so we can cut to the chase and talk about the meat of what we are actually trying to do here, and that's provide a more neutral consumer interface to protect consumer interest, to protect consumer choice. And really, all of us in business, we have consumers, we have customers. My philosophy, Boltive's philosophy also is, if you protect the consumer, if you protect the customer, if you do the right thing for your consumer, you are going to come out ahead over the long term.
Do you use a taxonomy of patterns? Do you use different categories to sort of classify them? How do you work around manipulative designs?
Our North Star is we tend to look at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's criteria. There are 5 big ones. You can find this on their website. Things like complex and confusing language, especially in privacy notices. These things really should be written at an 8th grade level. They shouldn't be so difficult that somebody has to sit down and require an advanced degree to understand what's being requested, and what people are doing, what's being requested of the consumer's data, and then what will happen to the consumer's data after the fact. Interface interference is another big one. And that is those are designs, especially in a consent management platform, that nudge the user to accept all at the cost of having an equal asymmetrical ability to reject all data collection. Those are very common. Both of those things are very common. And there was an enforcement sweep, international enforcement sweep last year. 1,000 websites and apps. These are enforcement agencies from across 53 different countries, and looking at these manipulative patterns across all of these different properties, 97% had a problem, and it was on these two types of dark patterns in particular: complex, confusing language, and interface interference. And so, what the consequence is, your typical consumer, you're going to sit down and read a privacy notice. You're going to spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour of your time. Nobody does it. When somebody does have a question, they get in there and you can't understand what's going on. I'm a sort of subject matter expert in this because of what I do for work in my background. And I sit down and I can't understand sometimes what's happening either, right? And then the interface interference. So it's unfair to the consumer is what I'm saying. The interface interference, is it as easy to opt in as it is to opt out, is a gold standard. And it's what regulators are looking for. Thinking about U.S. states, thinking about Europe, also thinking about FTC, thinking about also unfair and deceptive trade practices. Think a lot about comprehensive privacy regulations, and there's a patchwork across the United States, and people get and then there's Europe, people get very focused on the privacy regulations specifically, but what they don't realize, these are the rocks that are hiding right under the surface of the water. Unfair and deceptive trade practices. Every U.S. state and the federal government have laws against unfair and deceptive trade practices. New York State Attorney General has come out with guidance around manipulative patterns in consent management platforms. This is a huge area of risk, I think, for companies, and a huge area of opportunity to do better for consumers. Just make it as easy to opt out as it is to opt in. Give choice and make that real choice. That's actually a very easy thing to do. A lot of privacy compliance is not easy, but just making sure your CMP is straightforward and is not confusing. Your privacy notices, do what you can to make those simpler. This is low-hanging fruit, I think, in our world. There are other common dark patterns that we can talk about. Those are the 2 key ones, though, although also a third one, obstruction, making it really hard to exercise rights. So I'm a California consumer. I would like to know what data you've got right of access, or I'd like you to delete my data. I actually just went through a process myself with a certain data broker just to correct a record, but then also to experience, how did this work? It took me about 3 months. About 3 months of repeated requests and trying to figure out what they were trying to tell me, and what they told me was not please go to our website and do 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 did not exist on the website anymore. It was awful. That is that is classic obstruction. It was next to impossible to get my record corrected, but eventually, with enough persistence, which is, again, this is not what regulators are looking for, consumer persistence to exercise rights. This is the opposite. I was able to do the thing, but that is a major problem, and it's major low-hanging fruit, actually, for companies. Get the easy stuff right, you know?
So, isn't there a risk that if we if we do something like that, like a global sample, to see where we've got manipulative design, for example, accept all, reject all, the same level, there's a risk that we flatten, expectations, in the sense that you've got an opt-out world in California and an opt-in world under e-privacy in Europe, and then you are sort of misleading people into believing they can enjoy the same kind of protection, or expecting accept all, reject all, as if they were living in an opt-in world.
Yeah, I think a large sweep like the G-Pen one, it's illustrative. And I think a lot of us, whether you're a specialist in this area or a consumer, I always think about my mom and her experience. She's 78, not great with technology, but she's out there doing it, getting things done. If we put our consumer hat on, so the G-Pen thing is illustrative, anecdotal experience, illustrative, but I think for a business, if we put our consumer hat on and we think about my business's posture, what are the rights that I want to afford? What are my interpretations of regulations, first of all? It's really important that businesses think about how regulations impact them and not use cookie cutter tools. People, also another area of rocks under the water is CMPs whose default interfaces actually have manipulative patterns in them. This is not the easiest step. Understand what the regulations are and how they apply to me. That is easier said than done. But that is the first step. What do I need to think about in different jurisdictions, California versus Spain? The second step is putting on that consumer hat and going to the property and thinking about, okay, so I've decided to afford certain rights to certain consumers in different places, and you have the right as a business to do things in different places. I would never advocate take a GDPR only, GDPR all, apply that to all jurisdictions. I think that companies sometimes can hurt themselves that way. Companies have a right to collect data where appropriate and where legal. Okay, data drives the business. Let's find ways, and there are CMPs that do this, that make this easier than others. Let's find ways to collect data in an appropriate, lawful way over here, and then do something a little bit differently over there. And then you go with your consumer hat and you think about, all right, so if I'm a California consumer, what do my opt-in rights and my opt-out rights look like? I go to a website, I'm opted in until I opt out. Great, that's fine. But I should have an easy way to opt out, and California has specified certain easy ways. If I have a consent management banner that I, the California consumer, go to and I experience, it should be easy to understand, and my right to opt out should be right there, front and center, in the CMP or in the link at the bottom. Great. If you have you're extending a different experience to users in Spain or Brazil, okay, great. Go there with your consumer hat on and do that same evaluation. What are the rights that I'm affording these consumers, and is it as easy to exercise them? Is it easy to exercise them? That is really, if we think about privacy law and UDAP laws, the unfair and deceptive trade practices, they're consumer protection laws. So you can't go wrong by putting your consumer hat on and going to your property and trying to experience it like your 78-year-old mother would.
What if we make it a bit more complex, right? So one thing is what you've got on a website, and you go in there, and yes, it could be opt-in, opt-out. You can still be fair. You can still put on your consumer hat on, as you're saying. And then there's things that take multiple processes, multiple visits, right? And they happen over a long time and they're still manipulative. So the FTC, for example, they sued Amazon. And this was really, the name is funny, okay? I know this is not funny because we've all suffered it, but the name is great. Roach Motel, right?
Yes.
So this is a pattern that we teach at, for example, the CIPT courses, right? The IPP, Roach Motel. So fantastic. So you get in, you can never get out. You can always check in, you can never check out. So, and one thing I didn't know is that I thought it was just directly referenced in Hotel California. It seems like there was a product somewhere in the US,
Yes.
right? I had no idea for the roaches, an actual product called Roach Motel. So, and this Roach Motel, again, there was this case against Amazon. Amazon internally, we later found out, had a code name internally for the process that you require to go through in order to cancel your Prime membership. And internal employees would call it the Iliad.
Yeah.
So it was like whatever, like 15 or 16 steps. And just when you thought you were done, there was a tiny little link that you wouldn't see and a beautiful long yellow button that would take you back to square one. And it would use all sorts of tricks so you would stay. In the end, they had to settle. There was the lawsuit, and so on. I think it's 2023. So how do you do that? Because I can see, and I want to sort of go into auditing and the work that you do in terms of auditing. I understand auditing of CMP. Are you able to detect these kind of things in a multi-process environment like that?
We can. Depends on the nuances, but really what Boltive does, we're a suite of tools that companies can use to verify and monitor security and privacy compliance across the entire consumer-facing front end. So that's what's happening to the consumer on the website, apps, as well as out on digital ad campaigns, out in the ecosystem, out in the open web. And that's a space where we have special expertise in publishing and ad tech. So we are able to simulate the consumer experience and interact with the sites and the apps to follow different consumer paths, to opt in, to opt out, to put something in a cart, to go through a flow like the Iliad, for example, trying to subscribe to Prime and then trying to unsubscribe. We are able to smoke test all of that for our companies, and we do have a lot of clients who are just keeping an eye on the opt-in, the opt-out pieces. What's happening? How is that CMP functioning as expected? As well as I said, going out to the open web and looking for ad campaigns and making sure that data sharing is as expected on the back of those campaigns as the ad renders on a totally serves on a totally unaffiliated website. Another thing that we're doing for a lot of clients, back to manipulative patterns specifically, is it's one thing if you are a company who have one website, you can go to your one website and do this check. Is it as easy to opt out as opt in, whatever. If you are a large enterprise who acquires a lot of companies, and now you've got 100 websites, 200 websites, 500, 600 websites. We have a client with 600 websites. It is not practical for one human being to go to 600 websites periodically to make sure there's no bugs that have released or somebody made a mistake and released the wrong version of the CMP interface. It's not practical to review all of those things, nor to monitor those. So that's something special that we do for clients as well, to help them understand the level of risk, dark patterns, level of risk and opportunity across their entire set of properties. When you're dealing with something at that scale, you need technology, you need automation.
Is there a chance for automation that goes beyond just knowing that there's some red lights or some sort of dashboard where I know how bad I'm doing? Is there an opportunity for, to correct these things on the fly?
Clients have different use cases. Some clients would like us to integrate with their CMP for cookie work within the cookie and tag inventory. We can do that. But we are very careful about how we integrate and when, because we don't want to add complexity. Their websites and apps are already technically extremely complex. They change frequently. There's also organizational complexity that has become a real challenge for companies. Different parts of the organization, from technology groups, legal, privacy, etc., marketing, all of these people are on the same team, but they don't speak the same language and they don't have the same understanding about the tasks at hand. And that organizational complexity can just exacerbate the technical complexity. So we are very careful about what we do and how to not add work to anybody's plate. Typically, we have clients who most of our clients want a readout. Let's say we scan for dark patterns once a month. We do the readout, we provide them the data in whatever format makes sense to them, one website, 10 websites, 500 websites, and we provide guidance around here's where you have some risk. We're not lawyers, we're not going to give legal advice, but we're going to provide highlights about where there's risk and help point people in the right direction as well. And that most of our clients, that is the critical piece, because it's, they're privacy team of one, privacy team of two across an enormous enterprise. And some of these, 500 websites, 200 websites, sometimes the agencies, the third-party agencies involved, or the teams are just distributed, the web ops teams are distributed. So a lot of people to talk to and interact with. So we look to make that easy for the legal team, for even a technical team, trying to help people conquer complexity, as I said. So most of our clients want that readout, they want those guideposts, and that's what we provide. But as I said, we also have the ability to integrate with CMPs chiefly around tags and cookie management, but CMPs, there's lots of ways to work with them, with our technology, to save time for the customer.
So then the one thing that to me is very unique, which is auditing the ads. So as a brand, if I am using all of these agencies, I have no control over how they are spending money and distributing tags so they can have some attribution and measurement and all the things that we do with tags and with identity and with third parties, so that we can properly, again, do lookalikes, custom audiences and whatnot. How does that work? How do you audit the ad stack?
Essentially, our simulated user, that simulation that we perform on the client's website and app, we can take that simulated consumer and go out into the open web and find the client's ads. And we have AI image recognition that helps us do that. When we find the ad, we record everything that happens on the back end of that ad, all of the data sharing, who are the guys at the party. We can surface that back to the client. Who's there? What are they doing? Also, crucially, in those network requests, as that ad loads, there can be 100 guys at that party, and they're all doing things. We take that complexity, we take the invisible, make it visible, and then make it understandable and digestible. We also think a lot about coming from the ad security world. There are two different altitudes, well, many altitudes, but two key altitudes, right? There's the 1 foot level, somebody who has a wrench who needs to know what bolt to tighten down to fix a problem. You need every possible granular artifact to help find that bolt. But that's a lot of information for leadership level, VP level, GCs, AGCs, people who are not technical, in just compliance folks who don't come from a technical background. There needs to be a higher level there as well to help them make sense of the data. So we're always trying to serve both types of clients and be a bridge for these organizations to help with the organizational complexity piece. Here's a data set. Can we provide different views of it to help facilitate conversation, collaboration, understanding? That's a key part of what we do.
What kind of value have you seen CPOs or DPOs obtain from identifying hidden vendors in the code?
The key value is identifying the vendor. if you have no idea that somebody is on your website collecting data because they're piggybacking in off of another vendor, in some jurisdictions, you're still on the hook. So step number one, value number one is finding the guys who are there and figuring out who they are. That's one thing that we do. This is especially common in ad tech, as you're saying, and in marketing tech. And again, back to our simulated user, we get true to life payloads from ad tech and martech because of our patents that make us look and feel like a real consumer, the value of a simulation versus just a scan. So we're able to highlight a really true to life data set. Here's what your consumers are experiencing. Here are the 10 guys that you've never heard of, that you don't have a contract with, that you have no way to do due diligence with, anything that's required under certain laws. Once a DPO knows that those guys are there, they can use our product to start to pull out, okay, how did that guy get there? How did this guy get to my party? And once you have that thread that you can pull, there's people internally. We also can offer assistance to help document, to help find who's the business owner whose tech is letting this guy in. A lot of times the business owner doesn't know that's happening either. It could be just not understanding, or it could be a mistake. Could be a toggle in the UI that needed to be in the vendor UI that needed to be turned off, something like that. So we can help. First, we smoke test, then we can help remediate. But truly, all regulators at this point, I think, the major ones have been out there talking about good faith effort matters. Please, please, just try your best.
True, true.
We're begging you. Even going through that process of we're finding these issues and this is our path to remediate these issues. If a regulator sends you a letter, having that documented and documenting that you're on a path really does go a long way. So that's another piece that DPOs are finding a lot of value with us.
Someone proposed a law to bar plaintiffs from milking companies and the SIPA and their private lawsuits because of the use of cookies and pixels. But I understand for the time being it is still happening, and your technology could be used to help both parties, those that are auditing a website from the outside to see whether they are dropping pixels everywhere, and therefore this is the case, and the companies that are being targeted. Are you part of that, or do you play a role in that crazy world of private, of class actions under SIPA in California?
Yes, and it is crazy. That is the right word to use. We've got law firms and consultancies who use us to assist with client engagements. Client gets a letter, goes to their law firm. I don't know what to do. Law firm can use us to help the client. So we've got those relationships, and then we have a lot of clients who are dealing with this as well, and they're able to use our data. We did a scan on a certain date. A letter comes in and alleges certain behavior on that same date. Well, you've got evidence actually that thing is not happening. That thing did not happen. You've got evidence built up over time too. This is what we are doing. We have a well-governed program. These are the data points. We have clients who have made these plaintiffs' lawyers go away, and that to me is very powerful because
That's really powerful.
There's enough to do in our daily lives, right? As privacy people, there's so much to get our arms around. To have some of these. There's a place for class actions, but there's also a way that they can be abused. And some of these are clearly abusive. They're just machines churning out letters. To be able to help a client make noise go away so they can focus on the things that matter and strategy, that makes me very happy.
That's so good. That is really good. That is valuable. Okay, a last question. Anything that really gets you excited about what's coming up next, the way you plan to use technology to help people in the next phase?
I think the thing that gets me most excited is this idea of tackling complexity, helping customers tackle technical and organizational complexity. I think our world in digital is changing very fast. We've got AI coming in, we've got B2C AI, we've got B2B AI. Everybody's, there's so much happening and so many questions about where the world is heading. What is not changing is consumer protection law. Regulators who are, for example, California AG's office, so the CPPA, their mandate is truly centered around consumer protection. That stuff's not changing. OAG in California and CPPA have both been out there talking about not just privacy, but security. Both of these things matter to us because it's consumer protection, and we are not playing around. UK has also said publicly, we are tired of dumb stuff happening around security that endangers consumer privacy. So we're getting serious about that. That's not changing. And I think the other thing that is not changing is, lots will change around advertising and how digital advertising works, but there will always be some kind of notion of advertising because companies want to reach consumers, right? I mean, that's why you build a company. You want to have some customers. If you're a company whose customers are consumers out in the digital space somehow, you're going to have some kind of advertising something because you want to go reach those consumers. How those modalities work, those modalities will change, but there will continue to be digital advertising and the privacy and security problems associated with that, especially around AI, which, lots of security people have been out there saying, we don't even know what the problems are going to be yet. That's just opportunity for us to help. And that's what, when I log off at the end of the day, if I've helped somebody be a little bit less harried, if they can sleep better at night because we've been able to help them do something, that to me is a successful day.
That sounds great. Thanks, Christine. Thank you. Okay, that's all for today. Follow us on Blue Sky and in the Masters of Privacy Altogether profile, you will find the starter pack, which includes the feeds of all of our past guests. There is also a Masters of Privacy LinkedIn channel, which I invite you to follow, where you will find links to our transcripts, cheat sheets, and other surprises every now and then. Our main website is mastersofprivacy.com. Thank you for listening.